You are not awake. You think you are, but that's the first deception. The question isn't whether you've been lied to, it's whether you have the courage to stop lying to yourself. This is about the pills, the metaphors that swallowed a generation. Part 1. The Architecture of Illusion. Let's begin with what you already suspect but refuse to admit. Reality is not what you've been told. But here's the trap. Neither is the truth being sold to you by those who claim to have awakened. The red pill promised revelation. It borrowed from a science fiction film and transformed into something far more insidious, an ideology that whispered, "You've been deceived." Men, it claimed, were the oppressed, women the manipulators, feminism the grand conspiracy. And for those who swallowed it, the world suddenly made sense. The bitter taste of rejection, loneliness, failure, all of it could be explained away. Not by looking inward, but by pointing outward. This is the ego's favorite trick. When confronted with its own inadequacy, it doesn't integrate, it projects. Jung knew this. He called it the shadow, that dark passenger within us that contains everything we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. The red pill became a collective shadow, a hall of mirrors where wounded men could see their pain reflected in pseudo-scientific theories about hypergamy, alpha and beta males, sexual market value. These weren't insights, they were elaborate defense mechanisms. Part 2. The Comfortable Lie. Here's what the red pill actually did. It gave you a narrative. A story where you're the protagonist, yes, but more importantly, a story where you're not responsible. Machiavelli understood power, but he also understood this. The man who blames the world for his circumstances has already surrendered his agency. The red pill dressed manipulation up as wisdom. It taught tactics, dread game, holding frame, emotional withholding, and called it strategy. But manipulation is just fear wearing a mask. Fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of being truly seen. The self-deception runs deeper. You adopt the language of awakening while trading one sleep for another. The blue pill was comforting ignorance. The red pill became comfortable certainty. Both are prisons. Consider this. The moment you accept an ideology that explains all your suffering through external forces, you've given away the one thing that might actually save you: the terrifying freedom of self-authorship. Law 1. Your perception creates your prison. Let me pause here and tell you something that will either wake you up or make you defensive. Every ideology that offers you complete certainty about reality is lying. Because reality isn't certain. It's a negotiation between consciousness and chaos, between the stories we tell and the truth that refuses to be tamed by those stories. The red pill taught you to see patterns, how women behave, how society functions, how power moves. Some of these patterns are real, but here's where the deception crystallizes. You began to see only the patterns. You stopped seeing individuals. You stopped seeing nuance. You stopped seeing yourself clearly. This is the ego's fortress. It would rather be consistently wrong than vulnerably uncertain. Part 3. The Descent into Black. And then came the black pill. If the red pill was cynicism dressed as enlightenment, the black pill is nihilism wearing truth's corpse. It looked at the red pill's worldview and said, not only is the game rigged, it's unwinnable. Your genetics determine everything. Physical attractiveness is destiny. Self-improvement is cope. Hope itself is delusion. This is where the shadow doesn't just speak, it screams. And some men listened. The black pill is determinism as death cult. It takes the half-truths of evolutionary psychology. Yes, physical attraction matters. Yes, biology influences behavior, and weaponizes them into a cosmology of despair. It tells you that you are trapped in your own body, your own face, your own height. That women are algorithms programmed by evolution to reject you. That society is a hierarchy you cannot climb. Here's what's true. Some things are harder for some people. Genetics matter. Context matters. Privilege exists in forms both visible and invisible. But the black pill takes these partial truths and constructs a philosophy that says, therefore, there is nothing to be done. This is the ultimate self-deception, because it protects you from the most terrifying possibility of all, that you could change, that effort might matter, that your suffering might not be noble or predetermined, but simply modifiable. Law 2. Nihilism is narcissism in disguise. Let's be clinical for a moment. The psychological profile that emerges from black pill ideology shows something fascinating and tragic. An overestimation of the importance of looks, an underestimation of personality traits like kindness and humor, and a worldview that consistently reinforces itself through selective attention. This is cognitive bias weaponized against the self. You look for evidence that you're right, that the world is impossibly stacked against you, and you find it because confirmation bias is a hell of a drug. Meanwhile, the disconfirming evidence, the couples that don't fit your model, the success stories that contradict your theory, the complexity that refuses categorization, all of it gets filtered out. But here's the deeper truth. The black pill isn't really about women or society or genetics. It's about the ego's last stand. When it can no longer maintain the illusion of control, it embraces fatalism. It says, I'm not failing. Failure is inevitable. I'm not powerless by choice. I'm powerless by design. This protects the ego from the wound it most fears, the possibility that it could have been different, that you could have chosen differently, that your pain, while real, isn't cosmically ordained. Part 4. The Shadow Speaks. Now we arrive at the center of it all. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Both pills, red and black, are attempts to make sense of suffering. But they're doing it backwards. They're externalizing the internal. They're taking the shadow, the rejected, wounded, terrified parts of the self, and projecting it onto the world as ideology. The red pill projects the shadow onto women. They are the deceivers, the manipulators, the source of pain. The black pill projects it onto existence itself. Reality is the enemy, biology is the tyrant, hope is the lie. But what if the real work was never about understanding women or society or sexual marketplace dynamics? What if the real work was integrating your own shadow? What if everything you hate out there is actually something unresolved in here? Law 3. The rejected becomes the rejector. Watch this mechanism carefully. The man who feels rejected by women learns to reject them first, intellectually, emotionally, categorically. This is protection, yes, but it's also perpetuation. The wound doesn't heal when you armor yourself against it. It metastasizes. The red pill taught strategic manipulation because manipulation feels like power to those who feel powerless. The black pill embraced hopelessness because hopelessness feels like clarity to those drowning in confusion. But neither addresses the wound. Neither asks, who am I beneath this pain? What would it mean to be vulnerable again? What would I need to accept about myself to move forward? Part 5. Alan Watts and the Game. Alan Watts would have seen through both pills immediately. He would have said, "You're taking the game too seriously. You're identifying so completely with your role in the drama that you've forgotten it's a drama." The man who believes in the red pill has forgotten he's playing a character called the awakened man. The man who embraces the black pill has forgotten he's playing a character called the tragic victim. Both are performances. Both are escapes from the rawness of just being. Watts taught that the ego is a construct, a useful fiction that becomes pathological when we forget it's fictional. The red pill and black pill are ego structures built to protect wounded selves. But protection isn't healing. Defense isn't transformation. Here's the paradox. You cannot think your way out of a problem you felt your way into. These ideologies are intellectual fortresses built around emotional wounds. And no amount of red pill knowledge or black pill truth will heal what only vulnerability, connection, and integration can touch. Law 4. Truth doesn't need a pill. Real awakening doesn't come from swallowing someone else's narrative about reality. It comes from the brutal, unglamorous work of facing yourself, your fears, your wounds, your complicity in your own suffering. Jung called this individuation. Watts called it seeing through the game. Machiavelli might call it becoming the prince of your own psyche. Whatever you call it, it requires something both pills explicitly avoid. Personal responsibility without blame. Self-awareness without self-deception. Part 6. The Way Out. Let me be clear, the pain is real. The alienation, the loneliness, the sense of being failed by a society that promised something it couldn't deliver, all real. The statistics about men's declining social connections, increasing isolation, economic precariousness, all real. But the response matters. And the response offered by these ideologies is not liberation. It's a different cage. The way out begins with a question. What if I've been asking the wrong questions? Law 5. Integration is the only revolution. The shadow cannot be destroyed. It can only be integrated. Every part of you that you've rejected, every wound you've armored against, every fear you've transmuted into ideology, it all must come home. This is the work. Not consuming more content about how the world works. Not finding better explanations for your suffering. But sitting with the parts of yourself that hurt and asking, what do you need? Maybe it's not sexual conquest. Maybe it's genuine connection. Maybe it's not dominance. Maybe it's respect for yourself first. Maybe it's not certainty about how reality works. Maybe it's peace with uncertainty. Part 7. The Final Deception. Here's what they won't tell you. Both pills are right about one thing. The world is not as you were told. There is deception, manipulation, games of power, biological imperatives, social hierarchies. But here's what they get catastrophically wrong. You are not separate from that world. You are not an innocent observer corrupted by reality. You are reality, observing itself, deceiving itself, waking up from itself. The question isn't which pill to swallow. The question is, are you brave enough to spit them all out? Law 6. Your shadow knows the truth. Everything you project onto others lives first in you. The manipulation you see, you've manipulated. The superficiality you despise, you've been superficial. The hopelessness you feel, it's your hope turned against itself. This isn't condemnation, this is liberation. Because if the problem is out there, you're powerless. But if the problem includes what's in here, then transformation becomes possible. Law 7. There is no final truth. Machiavelli understood that power is amoral. It simply is. Jung understood that wholeness includes darkness. Watts understood that the self-seeking enlightenment is itself the obstacle. Put them together and you get this. Stop seeking the truth about women, society, or reality. Start seeking the truth about why you need the truth to look a certain way. Your ego has been building explanations. Your shadow has been screaming underneath them. And reality, indifferent, complex, ultimately unknowable, has been waiting for you to stop trying to solve it and start participating in it. The final lesson. Suffering is not identity. The most seductive lie of all, that your pain makes you special, that your victimhood grants you clarity, that your wounds are wisdom. They're not. They're just wounds. And wounds can heal if you let them. The red pill gave you a target. The black pill gave you an excuse. But neither gave you yourself back. So here's the choice, and it's always been the choice. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be free? Because you can build a perfect ideology that explains all your suffering, or you can do the messy work of becoming human again. You can know all the reasons why it's hopeless, or you can take one uncertain step toward connection anyway. You can be the victim of biology, society, women, reality itself. Or you can be the person who got hurt, learned from it, and chose differently. Not because you're optimistic, but because you're alive. And alive means the possibility of change. Conclusion. Welcome home. The blue pill was sleep. The red pill was angry sleep. The black pill was nihilistic sleep. Real awakening is none of those. Real awakening is the moment you realize, I am the dreamer and the dream. I am the wound and the healing. I am the question that has no final answer. And that's not a prison. That's infinite possibility wearing a fragile human form. So wake up, not into ideology, not into certainty, but into the raw, uncomfortable, beautiful uncertainty of being a conscious creature trying to figure out how to live before the lights go out. The world doesn't owe you anything. Women don't owe you anything. Reality won't conform to your theories. And that's exactly why you're free. Because if nothing is predetermined, then everything you do matters. If there's no cosmic script, then you write your own lines. If the game isn't rigged, just difficult, then difficulty becomes opportunity. This is MindX. This is the work. This is you, beneath all the stories you've told about why it can't be different. Like the video if it stayed with you. Tell me what hit you the hardest in the comments. And subscribe if you want more. This is MindX. Welcome home.